to the Efed podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the Efed podcast. I'm so excited you could join us for episode 72. All right, guys, today on the show, Erwin of New Extremes Wrestling. He's a Fed head and color commentator. I can't imagine how hard it would be to be a color commentator online for a Fed. But they are a member of the Triple Threat Promotions over there, a cool group of Feds if you're into They all hang out at their website over there. We're going to talk about it and much, much more on his interview. If I sound a little bit different, it's because I'm a little sick. It's been a long week for me trying to recover and get back on time to get this episode up on the air. So we're going to do our best. And if I sound a little iffy, well, we brought you an episode. So I'm glad we could do that.
Deal with
Brian is with me too. Brian, the producer and co-host. Brian, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. I think as you are recovering from being sick, I'm starting to come down with something myself.
Oh, see, I told you we shouldn't have. Never mind.
Ooh.
Instead, here we are for episode 72 of the Efed podcast. I'm excited. We've got a new question of the week, and that kind of leads us into the question of the week, Brian. It's strange bedfellows.
Oh.
Kind of a natural transition there.
Nice segue.
Book your character in a wacky opposites tag team. Brian, who would you book your character with in this strange bedfellows scenario?
Well, I mean, especially given the most recent events at Defiance's DEF CON 2021, I think the obvious answer would be Mikey Unlikely.
I won.
I can still go edit it.
I don't think so. Everybody knows the history. The results are in the Mikey Unlikely. Defeats Scott Douglas.
It's called DEF CON for a reason. We can retcon DEF CON.
You love to see it, Christy. Strange Bedfellows. Yeah, Mikey and Scott Douglas is a great one. Mikey and Dex Joy is a good one. Who else? Mikey Unlikely and Gestel. I don't even know what I would do with that.
That really puts the strange in Strange Bedfellows.
Certainly does. So there's all kinds of answers. We're going to get to everybody out theirs here shortly. But Brian, before we do that, we're going to kick it to our sponsors. What do you think?
Oh, we have some fantastic sponsors. Everyone check them out. Support them if you can. It supports us. We don't promote anything that we don't believe in because most of the sponsors are us. That's
right. We're going to do a special spotlight next week here on the show, so stay tuned. Make sure you check it out. Next episode, we're going to have a live spotlight with the Fed head of a Fed. Tune in and check out where we do a live spotlight on the show. I think if we can get it right, Brian, we can do it each and every episode.
Ooh, that'd be fantastic. Get it straight from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. It's a little bit easier to get the straight answer or get the real insights to a Fed from the Fed head themselves rather than a written statement.
Cut out all that wild speculation that we bring to the table.
We do bring a lot of it to the table. All right, guys, we're going to kick it to our sponsors. Make sure you tune in next episode as well for that special spotlight.
The Efed podcast is a totally free podcast that drops each and every single week for your e-wrestling ears on a multitude of apps. If you'd like to support the show, however, the best way to do so is over at patreon.com/Efed podcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support both Brian and myself as we crank out more e-wrestling content with perks such as early releases and special Discord designations. And if that's not enough EW action for you, jump up to the $10 a month tier and you can get a free EWT's t-shirt design, early and ad-free editions of the show, as well as access to our monthly Q&As, bad graps, and more. And if you'd like to be a sponsor on the show and get your ad played, the best way to do that is the sponsor level on Patreon with all of the previous perks plus weekly commercials on the show. Check it out over at patreon.com/Efed podcast. We greatly appreciate your consideration.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012, with a community on Discord and message boards, merchandise, a weekly vodcast on Twitch, and much more. Check out everything from us and our site partners at OccupyProWrestling.com.
Efed Tees, the #1 source for Efed merchandise, offering custom merchandise made for your wrestler, tag team, stable, or Efed. Whether you want a high-quality t-shirt, face mask, hoodie, hat, it doesn't matter. We can help you out over at efedtees.com. Do you have a custom logo for your wrestler? Awesome. We're going to slap it on a shirt and help you out real fast. If not, no problem at all. We have a custom design service too. You can work with a graphic artist to get the perfect design made for your character. Go on over to ewtees.com and click on Want a Shirt to get your shirt started. efedtees.com.
For over a decade, Defiance Wrestling has redefined what an E-Fed can be. An angle fed with a rich history and a colorful cast of characters, Defiance Wrestling offers a drama-free environment with some of the most experienced and talented writers in the history of the game, with a level of consistency that few other promotions can offer. With on-time events, micro offerings, and even a long-form in-character radio show, as well as a forum home on the classic fwrestling.com, nobody, I said it, nobody does fantasy wrestling quite like Defiance. Come, see what all the buzz is about. Come check out defiancewrestling.com. You heard me. It's defiancewrestling.com. I'll see you there.
All right, guys, Efed Podcast question of the week. Up this week is the strange bedfellows that we tapped at the top of the show. Book your character in a wacky opposites attract tag team with another e-wrestler. You can answer on Twitter or on the Discord, and here's what we got. At Snow Jordan on Twitter.
Snow says Brock Metzer and Max Hooper were exactly this in Legacy of Champions. They'd both be in their 40s or 50s now. Would be fun, too. Wrong too, buddy. It'd be fun to add onto the stories.
That's right. It's cool that you can take you already have Strange Bedfellows, and you can keep on adding to it.
Yeah, and if they're their 50s, I mean, you go from Strange Bedfellows to more like grumpy old men.
Up next is Bacchus. It's at Mom's Best Boy.
Bacchus. Open parentheses. This was the entire shtick between me and at Olive's Garden 3, teaming for the Spring Break Beer Pong Cup. The characters openly hated each other until that moment.
A very prestigious cup, Brian, the Beer Pong Cup.
Sounds like it. Now, we've seen / and it has been purported that is to signify that it is OOC. Am I to believe that open parentheses is also this OOC you speak of?
Brian, I don't know what these wacky kids are doing these days. It's hard to tell.
Twitter's so confusing. Now
confusing.
We sound like we're in our 50s.
Stay off our lawns. Okay. Speaking of confusing, it's Ace King. No, I'm kidding. At Ace King EWC.
Honestly, at Dom Sanders 7 basically told that story on the last podcast. So if you hadn't heard that one, what are you doing? Go listen.
Tony. That's right. Tony's episode. It's a good one. Up next is it's Thaddeus. It's at Better Than You _TD.
Already in it with at Doc XWF.
There you go. Up next is the Union Leader at Hail the Queen LT.
LT and Henry Keys. Ovs.
Totally Ovs. That's a fun matchup on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Up next is at I Am Not Alias. It's Alias.
It's Elias, because he is not Alias. Pseudonym, if you will. Ironically, I briefly thought of the idea of an odd couple tag team with at Atara Themis, actually called Strange Bedfellows. I see what he did there.
Oh, because they are strange bedfellows. Okay, never mind.
Oh.
Up next is at Polo Bucket. It's Poloverse.
Super Poyo and Kaleida at Tiger Mask Red. Red only tried to turn him into crispy chicken. For revenge, Red was gravied alive. Okay. So imagine the possibilities if they put their differences aside and took it out on someone else. I don't know what just happened here.
I can only imagine the possibilities. I'm hungry, though. I'll tell you that much.
It's time to eat.
At Titanus Sam, it's Sam Hamilton on Twitter.
Pound side, OOC, : if I took the wacky part a bit literally, it would definitely be Azarine. At That's Azzy Vebens. And they certainly are opposites. At the moment, Sam is strictly partnering up with Xavier, at Xavier Reed. And in their own right, they're kind of opposites also.
There's a lot of options. If you know your character well, there's a lot of different characters out there that'll be fun to match up with.
Yeah, bedfellows be strange, yo.
At Brick Shark, it's Harley.
Harley and at Please Do Drugs are probably the only two that would work in both a Strange Bedfellows and a Valentine's Day tag tournament they had tried to get booked in. Didn't know that was a thing, but all right.
So close.
Now I know. Also do drugs, folks.
Hey, we got ping pong cups and
Valentine's Day
beer
tournament.
pong cups and Valentine's Day tag team tournaments.
It's a wild world out there.
At Distorted Amber,
Pound sign OOC, at Superhero Roxy, good and evil twins unite like two sides of a coin. What kind of coins you got? Because mine's got heads and tails. I didn't really know one was evil. Is the eagle evil?
which one's the evil one?
The
though?
president's. The president's is evil.
Hold on, now we're not getting political here on the Efed podcast. Brought to you by EWTs.
Get your new shirt, no drama llamas, and presidents be evil, yo.
Up next is at Centurion Real.
Centurion and at IEYE _am _tempest. Not a lot of similarities between the two. Well, that fits the criteria.
You're pretty good at reading the ats, Brian. I'll give you that.
I'm trying.
It's weird. You're better at it when you're reading the answers than when you're reading the names.
Just read the names.
All right, we're going to kick it over to the Discord side of things.
And if you're not in the Discord, what are you doing with yourself? Jump on in. It's a good old time.
Jump on the Discord. You can find the Discord in the Twitter profile at twitter.com/the
.com.
It's MDG. Warren, check them out. Modern Day Gladiators over at Drive-Thru RPG. Check out our buddies' nice, fun card games.
Indeed, do that. And Warren says, Deegan has done a lot of those over the years, Craig Miles being the most obvious, but I would have to go with Malik Garland from Defiance. You can't tell me I'm wrong. Well, you could, but then you'd be wrong.
Now you sound like Malik. All right, that masked guy.
My main character, Kaleida, who's a demonic madman in a mask, and Jan Vanderroost. That's a hell of a name. Who's a polite family man with a personality like dry white toast. Bret Hart.
He's Lance Storm pick base, so very close.
There you go.
Very Canadian. Sorry, Rick.
Well, shout out to Kaleida. That's the second mention. Once in Twitter from someone else. I forget who now.
Yeah, someone else mentioned Kaleida, and now Kaleida gave his own answer. There you go.
Didn't return the favor.
Good stuff. Yeah. Dry white toast. Jan Vanderroost, early supporter of the show. So shout out to that guy.
Yes,
he was on when we were still doing live promos. He was submitting them.
Ooh, very nice.
Up next is Damn It. It's Meg.
Whose screen name is Damn It, and it is Meg. It's not Damn It, it's Meg.
Yeah, sorry. Don't misconstrue that. Not Damn It, it's Meg. No, her screen name is Damn It. But it's Meg.
If Megan did not retire, it would be Larissa Johnson because they would be fighting over if the Yankees won or lost.
See, and now we're going to be fighting over if I said Damn It, it's Megan or...
Well, and Megan did retire, and you can go buy that shirt over at for Megan's farewell match over at EWTs.com.
That's right. And while you're over there, pick up a Grandpa Judge's Honor.
Ooh, indeed. Or anything 5BW, 5BW.efedtees.com. They've got a bunch of good merch over there. And
hoodies even.
Ooh, face masks.
They got everything. I like it. Up next, we got Rebellious Dink.
James Raven is the thread woven into the tapestry. Bobby Bourbon is a piss stain on. The class and the crass connection.
There you have it. I like it. He's already got the name and everything. Up next is at Seth is Burns. It's Seth.
Seth. For twists and turns, Oscar Burns, it would either be Mikey Unlikely, just because they are the very definition of a pure wrestler versus sports entertainer, or also Malik Garland, because Burns would do all the work while that whiny little snowflake hid in a safe space during tag matches. Well, hell, why don't we just bring the trios division back?
There it is. That would put Oscar Burns in literal hell.
Without the cell.
Yeah, no cell, just the hell. No kennel either.
Ooh, yeah, certainly no kennel.
Up next is at Billy Fields.
It's Billy in the field. I said it before, but with Elise Aries, I don't see how it's not Eric Dane.
That's a hell of a tag team.
I mean, I'm sure Justin's got some ideas of why it's not Eric Dane.
Well, he could have answered, couldn't he have?
He sure could have.
Well, you know who did? Cat Pasadena. So maybe he shouldn't get fired from Defiance this week.
We'll see. Let's see what his answer is first. Let's see. Like others have chosen, Pat Cassidy and Malik Garland. I'll go with the flow guy versus an anxiety machine. Well, for unoriginality this week, Joe, you're fired.
Awesome. Sorry, Joe, you're fired.
We wish you and any other strange bedfellow you can come up with in your future endeavors.
Now we can fire from two feds. That's great.
Oh,
double fired. All right, Alex Smiley is up next.
Axel the Shark paired with James Raven, another double up name here, or as I call them, Sharkman and Raven.
Oh, because the animal. I see what you did there. All right, up next is Andy Bloxham. Of course, you can check out the exclusive Andy Bloxham interview over at patreon.com/EFED podcast.
Andy says 0 in a tag team with Havoc.
And you can find out why over at patreon.com. No, I'm kidding. Up next is Jason Reeves at Stalker.
Stalker and Impulse spend every match trying to get Randall Knox to break the fucking rules, man.
I bet you can do it after a while. Oh, but Pete's up next, speaking of the devil. At the Shadow Pope.
Here's a fun one. Pete Russo and Justin Taylor in Efed prior to 2016.
Wait a minute. You're supposed to book the characters.
Oh,
come on, you guys.
I'm sorry, Pete. You have been disqualified from this week's question of the week, and we cannot tell people that you have a book and they should buy it. Sorry.
Over at Amazon.com. One Chance, Legend of Valerian's Garden.
All things we won't be saying.
We aren't going to say any of it. I mean, we're not going to say that it's available both in print and in digital form.
Nope.
I'm not going to say it.
No, we're not putting that out in the ether this time.
Sorry, Pete. You're fired. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the question of the week this week. You can answer the question of the week over at the EFED podcast on Twitter and on the Discord in the question of the week channel. Check it out. Put your answers in. It'll be on the show next episode.
Did you know that EWTs.com is the only home of Defiance Wrestling merchandise? Actual, factual Defiance merchandise? It's true! EWTs.com is your #1 source for e-wrestling t-shirts and more. Design a shirt for your favorite character, tag team, or stable, and sell them shits online for actual, factual money. Don't believe me? Let's ask this random woman on the street. Hey, what do you think about EWTs.com?
What are you doing? I don't want to do this.
I just wanted to talk to you about all the benefits of using EWTs.com.
Seriously? I'm busy. I don't have time for this right now.
But ordering from EWTs takes no time at all. Honey, work with me here. EWTs, come on.
I don't even know what this is. What isn't EWT?
Well, you can also find them at efedtees.com.
Or is it OO? Is it OO tees? This is dumb.
It's not dumb. It's an amazing idea, an idea you can be a part of at home.
You are dumb.
You know, design shirts for your favorite character or tag team, or buy the shirt of your favorite characters.
What do you mean characters? Are you a child?
Only at EWTs.com. Just check it out, please.
Please close the door behind you when you leave.
Thanks for the help, babe. For more info, go to EWTs.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the Efed Podcast interview series. Today, we're joined by Erwin. Erwin's the Fed head of New Extremes Wrestling at New Extremes W on Twitter. The man started a Fed without knowing what it was. I'm excited to bring him to you, and a cool story. Now he's big into and commentary. Check out New Extremes Wrestling, and we're going to talk to Erwin today. Erwin, how you doing, buddy?
Not bad. I'm good, thanks.
Good. Glad to hear it. You stayed up late for us for this interview.
Yeah. Fueled with coffee and ready to go.
Well, good. Glad to hear it. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're excited to talk to you. You've been a part of the Efed podcast community for some time now.
About 5 years, I think, now.
It's been a few years now, so it's awesome. It's cool to have people in there and intermingling with different intersections of the game.
Yeah. I mean as I'll probably explain in a minute, I mean, I've kind of learned that there's more and more to this as time's gone on, and that there's still probably plenty more that I haven't even experienced yet.
I found that out just doing the podcast, man. I didn't know half of the stuff that was out there. I didn't even know about Efed. So before we get there, let's talk about early on. Erwin, when did you get into pro wrestling? When's the first time you remember seeing it?
I'm trying to think. It must have been about 11, 12, that kind of age, and the Attitude Era was kind of getting into the swing of things.
Okay.
Just about starting. A friend of mine, I remember he showed me, he had 3 tapes that I distinctly remember. One was a 95, I think it was, Royal Rumble. I remember Michaels. It was definitely an open air Royal Rumble. And the Mountie was definitely involved. there was a lot of the old crew involved in whichever year it was anyway.
95 sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, but then the other 2 were more sort of getting into it. There was the, is it St. Valentine's Day Massacre with the steel cage?
Yeah, Vince McMahon and Steve Austin.
And then the infamous Hell in Cell with Undertaker and Mankind. And that was it. I was hooked from there.
So you saw Shawn Michaels win a Royal Rumble. You saw the Mankind fly off the cage. And what was the other? Oh, it was Paul White coming through the ring.
Yeah, and the whole feud beginning with Stone Cold and Vince, and that really boiling. And I was just like, what is this? This world is amazing. And I think from there, I kind of discovered I couldn't watch Raw because over here it was all through Sky. You had to pay for the extra sports channels. My dad could watch the sports he wanted on Eurosport because that was free. So I had to just go with whatever was free. So I could see SmackDown. I could see Heat, which was pretty much coverage of SmackDown and a few extra matches. And then I think just after Cartoon Network finished, I started discovering it switched over to TNT. I think someone else on the podcast had mentioned this before.
Yeah.
And then on comes Nitro. So I got Nitro as well.
So you got a decent amount of American wrestling despite not having Raw.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have to kind of catch up with Raw with all my friends. And we actually started wrestling together. There was an old village hall near where we lived, and we'd rent it out for an hour for £5, I think it was, for the hour. And we'd collect all the gym gear we could there, like the hobby horses and things like that to make turnbuckles, the mats for pads. And that was it. We'd just go at it. It was brilliant.
That's amazing. You're renting out a hall to do like backyard wrestling inside.
Yeah, essentially. The worst thing was they did have 15-foot ladders, and
and you put them to use.
yeah, we definitely did.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that's a cool story. So when you first got into wrestling, when you first see these tapes, and you first start watching, what wrestlers to catch your eye? Who are your favorites off the bat?
Well, oddly, I mean, obviously, like the Rock and Stone Cold, things like that. Undertaker definitely caught my eye. But I was always a fan of all these underdog talent for some reason, like Road Dogg and D'Lo Brown, all these people that never seem to get their dues. And I know you're a big fan, and
Yeah, D'Lo's
it was just one of those. A Godfather was another one I always enjoyed without really knowing the connotations of the actual character as a child. I think he just seemed to be someone that deserved to win because, everyone seemed to love him.
Everyone loves him, yeah. He's making everybody cheer, so, yeah. Who knew what he was actually doing when we were that age?
Yeah. Now I look back at it, it's like, maybe not the kind of thing. But then there's that scene I always think when I came back to wrestling, because after that I kind of fell out with it and only recently kind of went back into it about 5 years ago. And yeah, it was that there's a scene where there are kids chanting and holding signs saying "Save the hose," and I'm thinking I would have been one of those kids. I would have had to look back at this in my adult life, going, "Oh no, I'm on camera saying save the hose."
Did they save the hose? That's the real question everybody wants to know.
I think that was the start of the whole right to censor gimmick, and I don't think they ever did. I think they brought them back for the spot appearances after that, and that was it.
I guess he's going to be on Steve Austin's podcast coming up, so maybe that'll be worth checking out.
Well, that'll be a good one. Mm-hmm. He's had a long, interesting story in the business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Papa Shango and everything else.
Yeah, definitely.
So you catch most of the main eventers catch your eye, and then you got some underdogs there as well, and the greatest of all time in D'Lo. So talk about now. Who are your favorites now that you got back into it?
Well, I'm definitely more NWA Ring of Honor sort of oriented, so definitely Nick Aldis is just incredible.
He is.
I mean, a lot of the ones in NWA that really just pull out those great promos. I mean, that's a lot of what captures me, as well as the in-ring stuff. But you've got to really be able to hold your audience,
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think of there's a guy in Ring of Honor, and ironically, you shouldn't forget his name. He's the Mecca, Brian Johnson.
There you go.
And yeah, he's absolutely insane. Like, all of his promos, I keep watching and going, why can't there be more of this in wrestling nowadays?
That's what I say when I watch NWA too.
Yeah, it's just great. I'm trying to think of some more. I mean, I like a lot of the NXT, although that's starting to get a bit too goofy for me. I like a lot of the NXT UK. But like Finn Balor, I still quite like. That Karrion Kross thing's really interesting at the moment. I've never seen him in any other promotion, so I'm quite interested to see what this Karrion Kross character's all about.
That's awesome. So you're back invested in wrestling. So what pulled you back in?
Well, I started working for Tesco, and a couple of years in, one of the other guys I work with there was talking about, did you ever used to watch wrestling when you were a kid? And I was like, yeah, I did. And we started talking about all these funny things in the Attitude Era, and there we go. Start pulling up YouTube clips, and I was like, what's this about this network? Well, I think I'll buy into this. I can watch all these old things again.
Yes.
And that was it. Once I started watching the old things, I noticed the new stuff, and I thought, I'll see what it's like now. And didn't quite enjoy it as much, but I still enjoyed these bits here and there, and I kind of kept up with it until I think it was not long after the whole Fiend thing started, because I was really interested in that. I personally thought, if they roll this character right, this could be the next Undertaker for the next generation.
And then they did something completely different.
Yeah, they just didn't do that at all. They put Goldberg against him. I think that was the point where it kind of lost it for me.
Yeah, how do you recover? I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about e-wrestling. How did you find this weird world of e-wrestling?
Well, that was sort of part of the rediscovery of wrestling. I thought, well, I used to love the games when I was a kid. SmackDown 2, I think, weirdly being one of the last ones I played, because when everyone else got a PS2, I got the original PlayStation, so I was a bit behind. But SmackDown 2 was incredible, so I thought, well, if it's anything like that, yeah, go on, I'll go for it. So I went and got, I think it was 2K14 or 15 at the time. And I thought, well, not quite as good as it used to be. There seems to be a few things missing, but I could work with this. You can make your own universe. I'll create my own federation, see what that's all about. And at the time, I was streaming quite a lot. So I thought, well, what if I made this as if it was WWE or ECW or anything like that, as if it was a program. Did that for about a year before I noticed there are other people doing this. And that's when I discovered this whole world of e-fedding.
So you're doing the CAW thing, creating wrestlers. So at that time, it's all you. It's not an online thing.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think. It probably in the last 3 years is the only time I've started getting people actually involved because I didn't know it was out there. I think the first one I started following was Ronin Pro, and then he's now got 2 characters in NEW, and we've kind of got storylines between characters that are kind of ongoing and will mishmash at points.
That's pretty cool that you have now as Ronin Pro. Is he doing the same thing where he's running all his own original characters?
He's got a lot of other people involved.
Okay.
I seem to have struggled a lot more because I'm on PC.
Oh,
And if you don't have
the
community sharing system,
it's a little tougher.
It kind of limits you. I mean, I'm quite willing to recreate it, but when it comes to like the face textures, if someone's got some of them, I've tried recently to do my first ever one, recreating with a face texture, and it's tough.
Yeah, some of that stuff is tough, and I haven't quite figured it out. But talking about wrestling video games, so let's touch on that. What you mentioned SmackDown 2. Well, back in the day, were you playing a bunch of wrestling video games, playing on PlayStation 1?
Yeah, again, my friends had PlayStation, so I had a lot of experience on those ones anyway. There was Warzone, and I'm trying to think there was another sort of Raw-themed one. It was very clunky, but
You're thinking of Warzone and
Attitude.
Attitude.
Yes. Yeah. The level of detail in the sort of construction of the actual arenas and things like that. I mean, I go back to it now, it's probably very basic, but I remember you could colour everything how you liked it, set all these different things up in different themes, personalised, customised wrestlers, and again, that kind of thing just draws me in. My creativity was always sort of bolstered as a kid by my parents. They always encouraged it quite a lot.
And so when
go
ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I remember one of my friends had, was it WCW Thunder?
Yep.
Not the greatest, but I remember we always used to mock the expanding ring ropes. It seemed they'd go beyond the actual ring. So you'd kind of fly out to the outside. And again, back when we were wrestling in that hall, if we slipped, because we had nothing to replicate rings, so if we slipped off the mats because we were using socks as to not hurt anyone with our kicks, we'd WCW roping and then sort of run back in, kind of laugh about it.
Oh, that's great. So you said you started streaming while you were doing this Fed of yours. What was that experience like in the beginning before you knew what e-wrestling was?
Well, I was just kind of throwing stuff out there and seeing what worked, and then I kind of realized these stories in my head, if you're just watching the video, you're not really getting what's going on. And that's kind of where the commentary aspect began, because I was like, well, what better way could I get that across? Well,
by telling you the story
Jim
myself.
Jim Ross was an absolute master at telling you every essential aspect about this fight between these two people and why it's so personal. And I thought, well, I can't be that good, but I could give it a go.
And so you started doing this. Are you playing a character when you start doing it, or are you just Erwin?
Yeah, well...
Or are you Erwin the character? Yeah.
Yeah, I was Owen the character as well. So I mean, I think if I remember rightly, for a lot of the early brawls, it was like, right, I'm off to go wrestle, so then my matches would be absolutely silent. And I'd have to kind of cover up for it next week and be like, well, you know, it was a tough loss, or it was a good win, blah, blah, blah.
That's funny. So then you're doing you got your guys, you got the whole Fed built up, and what kind of viewership are you getting at that time?
Oh, well, I mean, it depends on video to video, but I mean, it's nothing major. We're only in like the 10s. I mean, we've got up to the 20s at most now.
Yeah.
It's nothing wonderful, unfortunately. That's one of the biggest things I'd like to increase, really, is just even to get the opinion, even if they go, oh, well, I don't think that's very good. I'd just at least like to know that someone's watched it and made an opinion on it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And where can people check out New Extremes Wrestling?
Well, all of the links are on there, 3tp.moonfruit.com. That's all the triple threat promotion stuff that we do.
And that's
kind of a little network of us. Yeah.
And Ronin Pro that you mentioned earlier is on there?
They're on there as well, yeah. There's quite a few of them. Frontline.
Zero Network?
Yeah, they've got all I try and link all their shows, because I'm the one who kind of keeps up with the posts. So when they go live on YouTube, I try and share the link with a little, the YouTube itself and the actual match list if I can.
There you go. That's nice. That's nice that everybody is working together and they're checking out each other, but we want to bring it to a wider audience. So for those of you out there, check out 3tp.moonfruit.com. You can check out New Extremes Wrestling on Twitter at New Extremes W. And there's some links on there as well.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of the whole idea of 3TP. And again, one of those things I kind of jumped into and then went, hang on, some other people are kind of doing this as well. But I guess I've started now. So it was one of that. I just wanted to get everyone a bit more involved with each other, a bit more views, kind of get a little community going, if you will.
There you go.
Like-minded people.
Well, tell us about New Extremes Wrestling. What kind of Fed is it? Obviously, it's a 2K Fed. What are you playing on? And talk about some of the characters.
At the moment, it's on 2K19.
Okay.
I'm kind of waiting to see what the new one is.
I heard 20 was a disaster, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's clips out there. You can just Google how bad it's actually been.
There's a famous GIF now of the referee doing the weird arm twist.
Yeah, I've seen one even just recently of someone scrolling through the move list and a card just appears in the ring. And it's like, what caused them to release such a bad game? Surely they knew it was that bad and thought, well, we can get a bit of money for it before the whole scandal breaks. You know, it's like, why just not release it and tarnish your name like that? Just say it's not ready.
I bought Cyberpunk too. I know how that feels.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling with that one as well. There's Star Citizen's one I keep an eye on as well, because I'm kind of thinking, are they ever going to release that? They got a ridiculous amount of money to kickstart that one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so yeah, hopefully 2K22 is a bit better. But yeah, for now we're around 2K19. Thankfully they've kept all the image servers open, so you can kind of keep everything fresh without it going a bit too stale. As a promotion, it kind of started in the Extremes thing, because again, when I started getting back into this, I was pretty much into the Attitude Era, as well as a lot of ECW that I was catching up with.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as my tastes have kind of molded a bit more, it's formed into the back to more getting back into the roots, the traditions, the kind of NWA Ring of Honor style of things.
It's cool that you can incorporate the stuff you're watching and you shift your style. Like when I was younger, I loved extreme stuff. I loved the cages and the explosions and the barbed wire. Nowadays, I want to watch chain wrestling. You change.
Yeah, and I mean, I still believe that there are certain elements of deathmatch that still have a place. I mean, there's still things I can enjoy for. I mean, I forgot this in my list of sort of favourite nowadays. Jun Kasai, the crazy monkey. For some reason, I could watch every match he's in, despite how gory it is, and still enjoy it and still feel that it tells some needing to tell story.
And he's got a lot of bloody matches.
Yeah, definitely does. But yeah, so we've moved into sort of this more pure wrestling, and the heels are going to be dastardly and cheat and things like that. And as for characters that we've kind of got, the legend list would probably be Red, Tasmania, and Simon Youngblood at the moment would be the main three that are in the mix. They're sort of my cause that have been going the longest, that we've had a big story to tell, that essentially have had the most success as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in early days, until quite recently, probably the last year, I've kind of been letting the AI choose who wins and kind of rolling with that.
That's where I was going to go next. When you started New Extremes Wrestling, let's start there. Was it a sim fed? Is it one that you actually played each match, or was it like an angle fed where you had a story in mind, so you had that character win?
So for my character, because again, I thought, well, no one's going to want to get involved in this, I'll just run it my way. I played my character and let the AI play all the other characters.
Okay.
So I tended to win my matches, which kind of made it hard to kind of make that lovable fighting babyface if you win.
He wins constantly,
yeah. Things like that.
Now he's Goldberg.
Yeah, pretty much. So I just adopted the Goldberg persona for a while and just did every move until I'd tire myself out and maybe perhaps lose to a submission that way. And yeah, I slowly started realising this is getting really hard to kind of write certain stories around, because especially on commentary with me and Max, we'd be talking about how big this fight has been, how much of a long journey this guy's had through the history, and he still doesn't make it. And it just feels like a massive deflation. So
tonight is not his night. Oh, again.
That's it. And I mean, you do it 10 times and you're like, right, well, you kind of have to just get rid of him at that point.
Yeah, who's booking this shit?
So I went to the point of, well, I'm meant to be doing this as I would book a promotion. I wouldn't just let them go out there and choose their own victory unless I kind of had no plan for them and just throw me a good match on the card. Yeah. And we'll see where we go with this, you know. So I've kind of gone for that approach now.
So now that you're doing that, how are you finding telling the stories is going?
It's working a lot better. Again, early days, I tend to have like 6 matches on a card, no time limits, kind of just do things on the fly, throw random stipulations, whereas now, thankfully, it's more 3 matches a card, 15 minutes and 30 minutes for a main event or a title match. So there's a lot more promos going into it now, so there's a lot more story definitely involved now, and I think that's bringing out these bigger rivalries now.
Now, on the promos, are you handwriting them? Not handwriting. Are you taping them?
Oh, yeah, but typing them. Yeah. Scribbling them on a page, taking a picture.
It's very authentic, yeah. So
yeah, I tend to record there'll be can't think of the word, but a scene where they're not moving. I'll set it up as a false count anywhere, and basically take the highlight reel footage.
Oh, I got you. Turn that take stills into the interview.
Yeah, so I kind of pan around, get 2 angles. That's what I'm going for now, because again, it's watching Ring of Honor. Their promo packages are just beautiful. So I think, well, I'll try and create that as the best I can. So I get like 2 angles for the actual talking, maybe some clips in there if it's relevant of the past stuff, and I've tended to black and white that so it kind of highlights that it's from the past.
There you go. So that's interesting. So you mentioned Max there. Talk about Max, how you got introduced to him and how he got involved in New Extremes.
Well, he's been an old friend for quite a while. I was living in Ulverston at the time, and and the housemates I had were wanting to get a mortgage and get their own house. So I said, yeah, that's fine, no problem. I need to find somewhere else to live. Didn't want to go back to my parents. Been there, done that. Love them to death, but he was needing some help with rent and stuff. He was living on his own. It was starting to pile up on him. So I thought, yeah, no problem, perfect. And it just so turned out he developed a love of wrestling as well.
Nice. Through you, I assume.
Well, no, he was already enjoying wrestling.
Oh, gotcha.
So when I moved
That's
and
awesome.
started talking wrestling, he was like, I love wrestling. It's like, oh, excellent. So many hours of wrestling talk commenced. And I kind of said, well, look, I've been half-assedly doing this federation thing for quite some time. And I think this is the time when I don't think I'd been talking to Zero yet. I think we just got talking to Ronin Pro about bringing characters in. And he said, well, I've always wanted to commentate. I've always wanted to commentate a match, in real life if I could. And I was like, well, what better portfolio than doing this? So
there you go. You got almost a highlight reel of calls.
Yeah. So we started playing around, and there you go. That was it. We became the two-man booth of NEW. And thankfully, I think should be returned by the time this is out.
That's terrific.
I'm no longer doing it on my own, which is great because I had to call an Iron Man match on my own. It's quite the test of my push on a Joey Styles imitation.
There you go. Oh my God. So Max is back with New Extremes. He did take a break, and we got to get him on the interview here shortly because I know he missed his opportunity. So we'll circle back. And we're going to get Max on soon. We'll talk to him about this stuff too.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'd be better coming from his mouth than mine.
You mentioned New Extremes brought in other people's characters. What was that like for you after having all of your own for so long?
Great in a lot of aspects. Absolutely fantastic. So I was like, finally, some fresh ideas from other people. Some fresh promos from other people, just some general input from other people, and it has provided spoonfuls for me.
Makes your life easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, I tried it a couple of different ways. Basically, I think it was 2019. I did a class. I was doing it so I was bringing in classes of each year, and I was going to keep that up. And then the heel team at the time that were kind of they were essentially Imperium. They essentially had enough of these people getting the spotlight, and were like, right, we just attacked them all. And I was hoping that they'd say, right, well, we want a match against these guys, but they didn't. So I already had this storyline planned, and it had already fallen through the first hurdle. So I was like, clearly, this is not the route to do it. Let's not force storylines on people. Let's just bring the storylines out of them. Let's encourage what they've got and try and get to the root of their characters and see what would best fit them.
That's very good. I mean, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And you're diving deeper into the story than even with a simulation style, you're still diving into angles and stories.
Yeah. And again, now it's more not necessarily who can write the best promo wins, but who can contribute the most will probably get the most out of it, I would say.
There you go. And you can check out New Extremes Wrestling again at New Extremes W on Twitter. And, of course, at 3tp.moonfruit.com. So check it out. And where are you streaming at, Erwin?
On YouTube at the moment. Unfortunately, it doesn't have enough subscribers to have its own / So it's a bunch of numbers, but the link is on 3TP.
The link's on 3tp.moonfruit.com.
And on the Twitter, every week we release one, we pin it to the top, so it'll be the first thing you see on the Twitter.
There you go. And I'm sure if you search New Extremes Wrestling on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on YouTube, you'll find it as well.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to cover? What about your characters in other feds? How has that gone? Because you mentioned recently you've done that.
Yeah, Ronin Pro, Frontline, and what was New Ambitions Wrestling, which is now Pro Wrestling Universal. I was hoping I didn't get that the wrong way around. They've all got my character. I think there's a couple more, but they don't ask for any input, whereas these three are a bit more. They ask for promos here and there.
You write the voice of the character.
Yeah, so a lot of them have already been in NEW anyway. V's a good example. He's in Frontline, currently the champion, as of recording this at least. I'm hoping he still is. He's been a good one because he never got any major championships in NEW before the roster shrink came along, and he didn't make the cut. He lost his match and was out the door.
He's going to be your Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, he's basically been on the quest for vengeance, and again, he's risen to become their world championship, their inaugural world championship, which I thought was wonderful. So he's become sort of this guy, like, well, I don't care now, I'm on top of the world. What are you going to do? Almost in a similar fashion on Ronin Pro, I sent them 3 characters that I'd kind of run out of storyline room for. Again, this was at the time when I was letting the computer decide who won.
Yeah.
So these were a lot of people who'd kind of taken too many losses to recover their character.
It makes sense.
So
you see guys lose on a regular basis on quote-unquote TV. That's usually where they end up.
Yeah, and I was sort of starting to see this as like, well, this is a territory system in amongst these people that pass these wrestlers along. So if I pass them to them and they get hot, it only helps if they ever come back. They've already got this extra storyline behind them.
Yep,
and if not, well, they can use them.
They got legs to stand on at that point.
Yeah. So this trio came in as the club, and they'd kind of been convinced to band together in this new opportunity. And basically one of them has got ideas of grandeur and gone into this kind of king persona, a bit Booker T-esque. Without winning a King of the Ring, he just thinks that he's won their world championship now, so he thinks he's a king. He's royalty, and he's got all these followers. Because he's now abandoned his friends. He believes he has all these followers, but he doesn't.
Typical
So
heel.
yeah, I'm quite enjoying playing with all these personas and seeing where exactly they fit in. Because again, that persona wouldn't necessarily fit in NEW, I don't think, anymore.
But when you take it somewhere else, you can have more fun with it. It's almost like you have more freedom with that character now.
Yeah, and again, if I did bring him back to NEW, there'd probably be a bit of a tone down. He'd probably have to have some humiliation before he came in or something like that to kind of sort it out. But again, it's not too far beyond the realms of reality. He's just gone a bit got on his high horse kind of thing. I still do try to root it in some kind of level of reality.
Well, very good. Is there anything else you want to cover before we hit the questions from the crowd?
No, I can't think of anything. Let's hear the questions.
Very good. We got which Fed under the Triple Threat promotion has the best potential to last the longest? From Greg Ward, the boss, on Twitter.
To last the longest? Well, I mean, I have no intention of quitting. But
you got to be a homer.
Yeah, I mean, if I do ever give up, it's just because I've run out of stories, I guess. But yeah, I'd like to think I've got a lot of legs in this. I think Ronin Pro's been going longer than I have, so I've got to assume they've got no intention of ending anytime soon either. I know Greg Ward's a part of Kingdom of Glory. I mean, they're new, but I think their views, their shows get the most views out of all of us at the moment, so they've definitely got the legs viewership-wise to keep going and still actually be seen, I think, out of all of them. But I think we're all pretty dedicated to the actual scene itself.
It sounds like you got a good group of Feds over there.
Yeah, we really do.
So let's see. We also got XER0ENT on Twitter. That's Zero Wrestling. Holy shit. He was very
Yeah,
excited.
he's part of 3TP. He does the colour TV and the Zero channel itself. And they've got loads of shows. They're sort of like these mishmash. I mean, I know the Zero channel tends to be sort of these underling promotions that he generates characters through. I mean, all their storylines are really intense, really good stuff.
There you go. And you can check them all out at 3tp.moonfruit.com. I gotta keep driving that home, Erwin.
yeah, thanks for that.
All right, on Discord, I'm Meg, damn it. Wants to know, what do you think about other COFEDs that are out there right now? You kind of just mentioned a few that you're very high on. Any outside the 3TP umbrella you're really high on?
Oh, big thanks to you for introducing me to OCW Fed.
OCWFed.com.
Yeah, definitely up on my list. I remember listening to their interview and thinking, I've got to check this out and see what this is all about.
Production values and they're insane over there.
Yeah, definitely. CR Fire Pro, another one, really enjoyable to watch. As far as sort of production inspiration and things like that, I think XVPW, I want to say that's right. They do a lot where they actually have people record videos of themselves doing the promos, and then it fades into them coming into the ring in the actual 2K, and
that's pretty cool.
That was one of those where I was like, if I can get people even just to write promos to that level, I'll be happy for the rest of my writing days. You know, I can do a lot with that.
That's awesome. Do you see COFEDs blowing up to be as big, or to be as big even more?
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of room for growth. I think it's one of those things that YouTube hasn't quite caught on as a not, I don't want to say fad, because again, look how long some of these have been around for now.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got some going on 10 plus years. It's incredible. But I don't think they've quite tapped on to the kind of revenue they could maybe get from this if they promoted it a bit more.
Yeah.
Like they do with a lot of other games.
Yeah, there's a huge community of COFEDs and the handlers out there and people who just like to... I mean, when I was a kid, no one watched other people play video games. Now it's a hobby.
No, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I always laugh at what people watching people unbox stuff, but then I watch people play games to see if I want to play the game, and I'm like, well, I can't really argue with the point of watching someone unbox something if it's a figurine or something that you're going to look at.
That's great. Speaking of OCW Fed, we got a whole list of questions from Jason from OCW Fed. Hope you're ready for them.
Oh, yeah.
What was your first wrestling-related video game memory?
I think that'd definitely have to be the Warzone. And
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, probably not the best start, but it was either that one or right.
I just remember having like 30-minute matches just because I could not pin the guy. He would just kick out every time.
And I remember, like, to do anything even as simple as a snapmare, you had to press about 5 buttons just to do the one move.
It's
and
unreal.
You're thinking, how am I meant to remember this? Looking at these move lists, like, I'm just going to button bash and see what goes through. But I remember there being a female creator wrestler voice on there that always went, lick my boots. And that always, I don't know why. I think it's one of them things you have to tab past so many times that it just lodges in your head, as well as Mankind saying, have you seen my brain? I think I've lost it. I think those are the two things that the only things I really remember solidly about that game.
What drove you to create your own, I don't know what word to use, so just use organization, New Extremes Wrestling? What was the reason behind it?
Well, again, and I think it was covered recently on a 83 Weeks podcast. they were on about creating a game that essentially lets you be Tony Khan, lets you be Vince McMahon, lets you be Billy Corrigan, essentially, and take control of a federation. I think that whole idea of seeing what it's like to do that is just fascinating.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a sim thing. You want to live that life. You want to experience the simulation of being a wrestling booker and owner.
Yeah, and I think it's part that, part RP, like role playing, because that's been a big part of my life. Before this, I was on Star Trek Online for a lot of time, just RPing with one other guy because it was kind of dead on there. No one really did it, but we just created story after story. We had our own, essentially, chronicles, like our own adventures that were amazing. And it's just that creativity. I mean, I'm a musician by other hobby, so it's just, I just ooze this kind of creativity. I've got to get it out somewhere.
I like it. Yeah, it's very interesting when you can do all kinds of different hobbies and still be passionate about them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my problems. I think when it goes into the more work side of things, anything that I am passionate about can drain that passion to a degree. And I'm still kind of trying to find that balance, because I know I don't enjoy what I do now, but I'm trying to find something that I could enjoy doing without draining too much passion from it.
Speaking of the challenges, what challenges have you faced running your own organization?
Oh, plenty. I mean, again, trying to get the storylines at work, trying to figure out a lot of the sliders in 2K games to figure out how, like arm and leg power actually equivalent to what happens in the game and things like that. I mean, I'm finally at a happy standard with my attributes in core. I think that was one of the things I hadn't touched for a lot of the time. And then I thought, oh, hang on, I can make these a submission machine if I turn these two sliders up. Let's do that. That's what their character was meant to be all along. They were just getting lucky with it. Now I can actually commit to it, But yeah, finding ways around stuff like that the AI does not help you with on 2K, I think is the biggest challenge I face on a week-to-week basis of trying to edit this.
I think
especially.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, especially when I come up with an idea in my head that I don't want to pass up on it because it works so well. I think when I come up with that idea and I'm thinking, oh, how am I going to do this? The Magnum Opus split up was a good example. This was this sort of super group that had this 7'2", 600-pound monster in it, and he'd been in from day one of NEW, so he was kind of this lingering character. I was getting ready to retire anyway. So I thought, well, this could be his brilliant final run. He brings up this underdog who's now sort of a well-established character thanks to this, because they've had the longest tag team run in NEW. When that all imploded, I was like, I want to have this run-in where these two are celebrating the win, and the two opposing forces that are splitting up, Vega being this monster, he comes running in and attacks the guy at the side of the ring, whilst GBH, who was the other guy coming in with a kendo stick, attacks Snake in the ring. And I was trying to figure out how to do all this and having to piece all these little video scenes together. So, yeah, it's definitely challenging at times in that aspect.
So what shows are you most proud of? And if any, what shows are you most disappointed in, and why?
I'm probably more disappointed in some of the earlier ones again now, because my tastes have changed a lot of it. I mean, I'm doing a flashback series as part of the sort of outgoing episodes that are still coming out, and I'm trying to sort of highlight bits of the history of NEW and trying to draw that out. But as I'm kind of looking through some of these old shows, I'm like, I can't show that. That's just terrible. So again, more of it is leaving it to the AI is just a terrible idea at times. It'll just take it too far. Like, we've had matches, and again, the laptop that I'm using now is the laptop we use for commentary. But my gaming PC, that I have now, is what I used to record the actual game. In the early days, I was recording it all on this laptop, and the strain on that made some of the matches go on for hours when they were only meant to be 45 minutes or something like that. The timer would actually slow down.
Because the computer was slowing down.
Yeah, and things like that. Again, more challenges.
What about most powerful?
Again, most of the recent stuff. We've kind of got into that swing now where all the stories make a lot of sense. All of the teams are pretty well established. All the new people that are coming in, I'm actually getting a lot more people through the door now, so their stories are starting to get told. I'm kind of really looking forward to that. I think the proudest moments, I would say, would be Cowboy Roy as a character as a whole. He's kind of become our Undertaker, but he's just that lone cowboy that just appears every now and then. He kind of is the vanguard for our yearly cup that we run, where we invite core feds to put in a character.
Nice.
And that's the only time of the year that it's completely distilled down to the AI, and we actually go a bit extreme again. It starts off with extreme rules and gets a bit more intense as the night goes on. That's the one that ends in the Iron Man.
I was going to say, it gets more intense than Extreme Rules.
Yeah, so it starts with Extreme Rules. The next rounds would be Falls Count Anywhere, and then we'd maybe go on to ladders or something like that. And again, nowadays, with it sort of being NWA focused, I think this year I was like, well, it's the night of the year that we just go a bit crazy. Let everyone get their anger out. And so, he's really good. I was kind of thinking, well, we really love him, me and Max really love this character, but no one else probably gives a shit. And then Zero just absolutely popped for him when he appeared. I think it was at the last Iron Man, the first Invitational Cup 2 years ago now, which is quite terrifying. Then Zero's first character that he brought in, who actually faced him in that cup, Tasmania, his story started there. So that was like the last time for that year that we saw Cowboy Roy. He kind of went into this yearly cycle. He is set to come back at some point into the World Division. But for now, I kind of wanted him as that little vanguard that you just get to see every now and then, that spectacle, if you will. But yeah, Tasmania's journey started there. And he just throws me a promo if I ask him. It might take him a couple of days, but when it does get back, I'm like, right, I can work with this. I can see where this goes. And as a result of his success, I mean, my men's world championship, I've kind of got that story arc kind of planned out now for the rest of the year. So I didn't want to mess with that too much, but I knew he really wanted that championship. And I thought, well, it is quite new, but I've talked to him a lot, and I'm quite happy for him to win that championship. So I did leave that one to the AI. And my championship at the moment, Simon Youngblood retained. And I was like, you know what, after all those promos he put into this, that would have been one of those perfect stories. And I kind of felt like I'd blown it. So almost in recompense, he's kind of gone on an absolute tear now, and it's almost made his character even better, because now not only is the junior champion, he's the European champion, and now one half of the tag team champions as well. Wow. So we're starting to wonder, well, he's how is he going to lose all these belts? He's on an absolute tear, but when he loses the European championship, that's when he gets another shot at the world championship. So I feel it's only solidifying. Well, he's definitely got to win it that time,
Right, he's building back up.
Yeah, so that whole journey is going to be really fun, I think. But again, definitely a great achievement, just being able to tell that story and kind of, even when it didn't go right, still kind of adjust so it still feels right. You've still got that really strong baby face, and he's on a winning streak at the moment. He's having a really good year.
So what kind of advice would you give someone looking to run their own Fed now?
Oh, well, that's definitely a tough one. Definitely plan out in advance. again, I take a lot of the advice I hear on real world wrestling podcasts. Again, a lot of Cornette and a lot of what Conrad Thompson does. I like to listen to that because it's people that are in the know, that have been there in the real world, and I kind of take a lot of those notes for core. Again, you've kind of got to have a lot of ideas that can maybe last a year, maybe last 6 months, maybe only last 3, but then you've got to start planning other ones. So you need to sort of have that in mind when you're setting up a federation. And I would say if you're doing core and you're going to edit, especially if you're going into the highlight reel stuff, which is even far too much for me because that means recording every 23 seconds, going back out the menu, waiting 23 seconds, going back into the menu, recording that again. It just seems far too much for me. I'm just going to wait until they actually do the cutaways properly at ringside. You know, when you're watching an AI versus AI match, I don't see why they can't make it a bit more realistic, as if you were watching it on TV. Sorry, I've lost where I was going with that.
No, you just need to plan it out and have a direction.
Yeah. I'd say definitely edit in advance. I mean, I try and get at least a month ahead before I release a show. So we go weekly, and we're about a month ahead recorded, ready to go, all in the can. So if we ever do run into editing issues, if I'm getting a vignette that I just can't get right, I've got that little buffer there to catch back up again.
Nice. Yeah, that's a smart way to play it, keeping yourself cushion.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, the thing I'd hate the most for those who actually do watch my show, all 20 of them at tops, and I appreciate every single one of them, I'd hate for them to go, oh, he seems to have stopped doing it because he's not been on this week, and then not bother to check back for a while, you know. Yeah. So I think if I can keep it going a week, and if I can't, there probably will be a YouTube video to explain why, and we'll kayfabe it, because again, this is probably the first sort of non-kayfabe thing I've done outside of the people who are actually have cause in the group that I've done in a while, because I just enjoy that kayfabe aspect so much.
That's great. That's the NWA style, like you said.
Yeah.
Where do you see New Extremes Wrestling in 1 year and in 5 years?
Oh, well, again, I've kind of got the World Championship kind of plotted out for that year, so I'm hoping that the audience responds well to that. As for 5 years, I'm again hoping that viewership just increases steadily for people that want to stick around, and again, if they don't, I'd like to know why not.
Yeah, just give some honest feedback.
Yeah, just get more heads on the product and tell me what you think, essentially.
What made you decide to pursue commentary side of things?
Well, again, that was more Max wanting to get into it, and again, I kind of played around with it. I think the first ever Brawl, I think I commentate for, and I released it on the anniversary this year. And I was like, oh my God, I sound like I'm commentating golf. I'm just so out of it, because I mean, I think the only thing close to commentary I'd been doing at the time was sort of radio stuff, but I was even a couple of years out of that at the time. So it just kind of, didn't translate well, but with Max's enthusiasm, I mean, he was ripping JR off to begin with, but he's kind of definitely got into his own style now, and I think because of that, and again, I can't really talk much, I definitely rip off a lot of Bad News Barrett for his commentary style. It does get a bit yelly, but I kind of try and put a bit more bass in the voice when I'm commentating. But yeah, I think our sound's really good now. I think it's worked out really well, but again, I didn't want to really get into the commentary side of things. It's just kind of fallen as something I've got to do to make it good, to tell the story, essentially. So it came as a necessity.
It's interesting, yeah. And then you got another guy in the background cheerleading for it. Let's do commentary.
Yeah, it's really kind of brought it out even more, because we do enjoy it, I think. I think we really do.
What's been your favorite match to call so far?
Oh, there's been a lot. most recent to memory, I think, was that Simon Youngblood Tasmania match, because when I edit it, I mean, I obviously know what's going to happen, but Max doesn't. So a lot of the time, the matches I enjoy the most are the ones that he doesn't actually pay any attention to me editing, because we're housemates. So there is a chance that he'll catch a finish here or there. But his genuine excitement for some matches are really what make me enjoy the match the most. But I believe I called that one on my own. But even though I knew what was going to happen, the twists and turns that the AI actually brought out in that match, I was like, for once, this 2K game has actually got it bang on for this match. And yeah, I think that really brought out the best in me and allowed me to enjoy the match the most. But there's been a few through NEW history. One me and Max talk about all the time was one we ended up having to abandon when we were live streaming rather than pre-recording. It was a submission match and no one was submitting, and I think it had gone on for it was either half an hour or an hour real time.
No.
Yeah, we tabbed on to the other, because at the time we were using OBS, so you could tab on to a screen that was just a different image, so you couldn't see what was going on in game. And we were like, oh, and the referee's just deciding to ring the bell. They've had enough. The time limit's been reached. We didn't realise there was a time limit, but apparently there was. And kind of had to call it off that way. But the match itself was so brilliant. It went on for so long, but every again, it was the twists and turns that it provided were actually really exciting. And even though we had to cancel it, was like, well, this kind of works, it's still the fight of these two people. And again, one of them was Cowboy Roy, so it only helped his story of this man he's the marathon man of NEW.
And they proved it.
Yeah.
So who would you say in the CAW community inspires you the most?
Well, I'd definitely say XVPW. I covered them for their production style and the commitment of their people in CAW that will provide those promos, definitely. OCW Fed for the same. Some of their guys that provide all those promos, it just must make the guys so much easier, just going, well, I can just sit back and put these two together and they'll riff off each other and I barely have to do a thing,
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great when you can get the engagement.
Yeah, just that drive of storyline is just fantastic. And again, they put a lot of focus on it and a lot of great artwork and things like that. I do go around a lot of them and sort of take notes, like, oh, I like that, I don't like that. I could use something similar, in NEW. I won't admit, I won't deny, I do nick a few ideas and kind of do my own twist on them.
I think we all do that, whether it be CAW Fed or what's on TV or what used to be on TV.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, there's no new material anymore. There's just kind of variations of a theme. But so yeah, I think everyone kind of steals from everyone. But
do you have any advice for anyone who would want to do commentary for a CAW community?
Yeah, you definitely got to have that kind of knowledge of moves. I mean, again, there are times when I see a move that a CAW does, and I've already seen it in the actual match as I'm before editing, because I watch them all to make sure there's not too many glitches that I can't call. And I'll think, oh, I need to look up that move, and I'll forget. So I'll go, I'll pull the old Vince. Oh, what a maneuver! Or,
what a maneuver!
Yeah. So, but yeah, as long as you can call, I'd say 3/5 of all the moves going on, I think you're all right. And definitely have volume to your voice. Again, no one wants to hear someone golf commentate over car footage. Definitely not. Even I don't want to watch it when it's myself. I've realised that.
So CAW is usually filled with gossip. You got any drama you want to share?
Thankfully, again, 3TP does tend to be very drama-free. I think a lot of the drama that people talk about in those lobbies tend to be from other groups. And I've always said, I treat people how I want to be treated, and if I ever have any personal issue with anyone in there, I'm not going to ban them from doing anything in any other core groups in there. That's up to those core groups to make those decisions. I'm very free-willing like that, and I think that's kind of reflected on everyone that's in there. No one really starts arguments or anything like that. It's a nice little community. Again, I've seen it on your Discord, which again is much, much larger in volume of people. And there's just some really good communities out there that are really free of that drama for the most part, and it's good to see that they can avoid that drama, because there are groups in there that I just tend to sit and observe that do have that drama, and I just stay away from it because I don't want to drag it into another channel, essentially.
Yeah. So thank you very much from Jason. Appreciate all of your questions there from OCW Fed.
Yeah, a lot of good ones. Thanks.
MDG, it's Warren up next. What do you see as the future of eFeds? What about the future of CAW? I think they're one and the same, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think it's what we make it. It's kind of one of those at the moment. It's still quite under the radar, despite having gone on as long as it is. But wrestling's popularity is surging again, and I think it can only follow suit. And again, the popularity of gaming, I'm kind of surprised that those two worlds combining hasn't really got into the open yet. I think Vice just need to do a documentary about it and we'll be sorted. But something like that to just kind of shed that limelight, and I think that'll be it. That'll be game on for the core community.
I like it. What kind of Fed this one's from Fuzz. What kind of Fed other than CAW would you see yourself in at this time? Would you explore any of the written Feds or the video promo Feds or anything like that?
The video promos, XVPW, has definitely intrigued me. I've thought about committing a character to that before. As for the written Feds, I definitely don't read as much as I used to as a kid. I don't even know how to convert this to American school system, but by year 3, I'd read all the year 6 books there was to read. So that was like junior school to secondary school. I'd kind of read that second lot. And then all of a sudden, after reading so many books, I just kind of stopped and never really picked it up. And now I do read a lot of articles still, but I can't commit to reading a book for some reason. There's just not that drive there anymore to read a book, but I think 1,500 words wouldn't be too terrible to have to read through. I think I might have to give some of the written core Feds a real serious look, because I've never actually... There's been the odd one, again, OCW kind of is half and half, so I've looked into their stuff. I've seen a couple of the others, but I haven't really delved into it deeply to kind of get a real feeling for them yet. But I'd definitely like to.
It's a good answer. Thanks, Fuzz. Up next is Alex Smiley. What would you like to see in future wrestling video games, whether as a benefit to CAW or just in general? Good question.
I think that anything in general would probably be a benefit to CAW. I liked a lot of what they brought over to 2K20. Just didn't like the bugs. Customizable weapon wheels, things like that. So you could take all the quote-unquote goofy weapons out of there if you wanted to. I'd like to replace a lot more with steel chairs myself than what they pull out under the ring 9 times out of 10. If you do let the Extreme Rules stipulation fly, tend to bring out the tables and the ladders, and you're like, well, why jump to that?
Right at the beginning of the match.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me would be those cutaways during a match. I think having 3 camera positions that you could maybe save at the end of a match and re-watch would be perfect for me. I'd just save all 3 and then make the match out of that. But I think as a whole, if you're watching an AI match, I think it'd be much better to have a lot more cutaways thrown in, different camera angles. I think that'd be a massive help to CAW in general. Just not having to use that highlight system all the time.
Do you think, and this is kind of a weird question, this is for me, by the way, do you think that the developers are aware of the CAW community?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they are. I mean, part of me thinks they have to be, because if not, what are their marketing team doing? I think they're just more focused at that younger audience, especially with it being WWE. They're more about where can we drive this merch? Where can we get the most money out of it from? And I think that is still very child orientated in their eyes.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this, because a lot of people that are in this are 18 plus. So I don't think the core community are quite on their border yet. But I think if they realised how many people are actually involved in this thing, I think it might turn their head a little. Because every time I join a new group on Discord, I'm like, wow, there's a new 1,000 people I haven't seen in here. What's going on? Where are all these people coming from?
It's great. I mean, the community's huge. It's only growing as wrestling is surging, and it's been a blast to get to know about CAW. And it's been a blast to get to know about you, Erwin.
It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate you taking
Thanks
the
for
time,
having me.
buddy. Before I let you go, though, we're going to let you plug one more time. Hit us with the links for New Extremes Wrestling and for the associates.
It's at New Extremes W on Twitter. And then for everything, Triple Threat Promotions related, it's 3tp.moonfruit.com.
There you go. And if you check out at New Extremes W on Twitter, he has a lot of retweets of all the other feds that are part of 3TP. So you can check them out very easily there, as well as New Extremes.
Yeah, and the Facebook's the same. There's a Triple Threat Promotions Facebook out there. And also tweets all the same. It's an awkward group, though. You have to scroll through quite a bit to get to it, which is why I prefer Twitter and Discord. But yeah, all those links are on 3tp.moonfruit.com. So whatever your preference, they're there.
And before I let you go, is there anybody else you want to plug, promote, put over, anything like that?
Well, definitely you for having me in this podcast. I think it's done wonders for the core community, and I didn't know about half of these before you started doing this. And as soon as I heard it was, well, you have to ask me to get on it, I was like, I need to be on this.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad you've been a part of the community. It's been a lot of fun getting to know about CAW from my end, between you and JCS over at OCW Fed, between all of the CAW Feds I've already interviewed, the ones who show their stuff in my channel. I love it. I love the community, and everybody's been super awesome to me, and I'm excited to spread more light on it. Make sure everybody checks out New Extremes Wrestling. First chance you get.
Thanks a lot.
All right, everybody. What a fun interview with Erwin of New Extremes Wrestling, a man who joined CAW without knowing what it is, a man who created an Efed without knowing what it was, and became a color commentator and made a lot of friends in the process. Make sure you check out his Fed. He's really excited about being on the show. He's really excited about getting word out there about New Extremes Wrestling. Take a look and see if it's entertainment for you.
Do that indeed. New Extremes Wrestling.
No, you love to see it. Guys, thank you to all of our sponsors. Check out EWTs, check out Defiance, check out classic-wrestling.com. Check out all of our sponsors. Check them out. We got crazy stuff going on. Next week, we're going to have the live spotlight on the show. We've got stuff going on over at patreon.com. Check out the Discord. Check out the Twitter. It's going wild, Brian.
TEFP Mania is running wild, brother.
So check it out. We're going to be back in 2 weeks with another episode. We're excited to have you guys listening to us. For Brian, I'm Mikey. This is the Efed podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
Efed podcast, only on the Atomic Jobcast Network. Presented commercial free on Patreon. You've been listening to the Efed podcast, only on the Atomic Jobcast Network. Presented commercial free. Jobcast Network. Presented commercial free on Patreon.